everyone, and welcome to another episode of Skycast, the podcast from Skydive Empuria Brava. Here with us today we have Ewan Cowie, who is one of the most active and experienced camera flyers in the world of skydiving, and we will be talking about camera flying. So first of all, Ewan, thank you very much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
So I'm going to start a little bit. How do you get into camera flying? What's the direction? What do you need to pay attention to?
Well, I would say the best way is probably to do tandem video, if you can. But with a lot of drop zones adopting Handycam now, it's not so easy. But if you do happen to be somewhere or have access to a drop zone that you can do tandem video, it's a great way to get your jump numbers up and also to get some experience with having the pressure and the responsibility of filming something that's really important to somebody.
Is it complicated to fly with a tandem, to fly well, to film well a tandem?
I think to film well, to do anything well is actually a lot more complicated than people think. And the trick is, generally, if you've made it look easy, it's because you're doing your job really well, which means it probably is complicated. So if you see a tandem video and you don't even think about the person filming it, it means it's probably been a really good job. But you can start with the basics, start with a good face shot that's well framed. And then from there, once you got that kind of golden thing that you need, then you can experiment a bit more and practice.
But in terms of flying technique, somebody that wants to get into camera flying, what do they need to pay attention? Because I know, for example, one thing, you have to stay on level, because if you drop or are higher.
Yeah.
So what other things are important to put attention to practicing, I guess?
Well, you can start with just flying, do a good tandem video just on the belly, like you say on level or a little bit below level, so that you can look up a little bit to the face shot. But one of the things that beginners make a mistake on is that they look up, which means they arch a bit more and they sink out relative to the tandem. So one of the first skills you need to do is to be able to stay a little bit below level without sinking out anymore. And you also need to be able to fly with very light tandems, very heavy tandems. So you need to be ideally kind of a mid-range weight, or at least have a baggy suit that lets you fly in a mid-range weight.
And also, I understand, be a very versatile flyer, because one time you have a super quick dropping tandem, another a lighter one, so you have to know how to adapt, right?
Yeah, exactly. Ideally you should be able to do the same job with any weight or size of tandem passenger or tandem instructor.
Okay. And what about what not to do? What are the things to stay away from?
Well, there's certain areas that you don't go anywhere near when you're filming a tandem. One is directly below and the other one is directly above. And that's because if they have a premature opening, for example, that could be really bad and could result in, worst case, a triple fatality in the worst case. And directly below, when the tandem opens, they have something called the trapdoor effect, which is where when they release the drogue, they actually drop and swing forwards a little bit. So if you're directly below them in that area, you could get kicked by the tandem as they open. So generally we stay away from those two areas. And there's some other things that ideally you should get a brief on before you even go to film a tandem. And this happens not as much as I would like. And it's something that could be improved on a bit, but in general you want to stay away from being above them on the exit, because they're going to release the drogue, and if you're directly above them you could get entangled with the drogue. Things like that. So it is actually a little bit more complicated than people think, rather than just jumping out and filming your mate. But if you have a proper briefing, that you can at least be safe, and we have to remember that safety is the most important thing, and getting an amazing video is the thing that you do as long as you're safe.
Yeah, and I understand from what you're saying that you need to be a pretty precise flyer, meaning that you can't, aside from staying on level with the different weights, you also have to know how to stay in the right part of sky, right?
Yeah, exactly. Most people, they want to see their face on the video from about half a meter or 1 meter away. So you need to be able to fly to get that shot, and usually you want to be a bit below because you want to see their face fully. You don't want to film the top of their head. So yeah, you want to be precise, and things like having a ring sight or a mark on the goggles can help with that, so that you can know exactly where the cameras are pointing. And then after that you can work on filming some other shots. Like here in Empuria Brava we have the beautiful Bay of Roses, so we always want to make sure we get a shot with a tandem with a bay in the background. So that's one of the things I always aim to get. After I've got the face shot, I go up and get a shot with the bay, and then I usually come down and get another face shot and do some carving around and get dynamic shots with a tandem.
So there's also a very big creative effort in thinking of what you want to show, like not just filming from wherever you are, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you do it as a job, you have certain boxes you need to tick, but then after that, you can do whatever you like. Like I like to film head up, so it's kind of more like free flying, and I try and make the shot as dynamic as possible, because I find movement makes a shot way more interesting, you know. So I try and add a lot of movement to the shot while still guaranteeing the basics as well.
And how do you adapt? Because I assume that every tandem pilot interprets a jump differently. So on top of adapting to the weight and being in the right spot, I assume you also have to adapt to each tandem, it's an assumption, but to how the tandem pilots fly, right?
Yeah, for sure. And also not just fly, but how they exit. Because the exit timing is one of the most important things if you want to nail a really good exit shot. And each instructor pretty much has their own way of doing it. I mean, they have a general idea, you know, they give a signal before they exit, but some of them wait an extra half a second before they go. Some of them go even a little bit before you think the signal is there. And yeah, you need to learn, or it helps if you can learn that the signal that instructor has, because then you can really nail the timing. So I usually think, okay, who am I with? What do they do on the exit timing? Just before I go, I just remind myself so that I'm prepared. And if you're not sure, be a little bit cautious. Maybe go a tiny bit early, sacrifice the perfect exit shot just to make sure you're safe and you don't actually hit them on the exit.
And once again, this goes back to the fact that you have to actually be a precise flyer, which leads me to something that you started doing, which I'm sure, I'm not a camera flyer, but I assume is something really helpful, which is to fly the camera wings in the tunnel. So can you explain a bit how that can actually help what you're trying to do?
Well, first of all, why do people fly wings at all? It's so that they can have a bit more range, you know, to go slower if they want, and it also helps them when they're on the belly to pitch up the angle a bit so they can easier get that face shot from below. But you can also use them so that you can be in a seated position without sinking out, because they give you extra range. And that's where I find you can really get a lot of dynamic, fun shots whilst being basically in a free fly position. And one of the best ways I've found for people to learn that is to fly in the wind tunnel. And we're really lucky here. We have the wind tunnel on drop zone, and they let me teach people with the wings. So it's perfect, because not every tunnel will let you. In fact, most don't. So we're blessed with that. And also it's harder to learn in the sky, especially if you're doing it on the job, because you really don't want to mess it up and risk not getting the shot. So I actually learned by doing about 1,000 tandem videos with the wings, and I learned little by little. But you can get almost the same amount of proficiency from, depending on your free fly level already, like an hour of tunnel with the wings, you know?
It's not simple. I mean, I think that even if you know how to fly, I tried once with you, but even if you kind of know how to not slam against the walls in the tunnel, then you put the wings on and it's a whole different way to place your body in the air, that if you don't do it well, you shoot up. I mean, it's not the simplest. There's
definitely safety considerations, and I really make sure that I do a good briefing before I teach people, because the wings can deflect a lot of air, and if you do that in the wrong direction, there's a big wall of glass waiting to greet you. So yeah, you need to be safe. But the way I teach is I start on the belly and then work it up to doing some back flying or head up flying, and then transitions, carving, and basically as much of the skills as you can practice in the tunnel, ready for the sky. There's some things you can never practice, so obviously we don't have a rig on, although I'm working on that to find a way to simulate a rig in the tunnel. And the other thing is the exits. So, but you know, depending on how confident you are and how quickly you learn, you can really bring the free flying aspect into your tandem videos very quickly. In fact, I had a guy the other day, he did, I can't remember if it was half an hour or 45 minutes with me, never flown camera wings before, only filmed tandems with a baggy suit on his belly, and then he sent me a message, "Hey Ewan, I just filmed a tandem video, the first one after I'd been in the tunnel with you, and I did the whole thing head up." So it just goes to show that it really does work a lot to bring those skills up really quickly.
And it makes a big difference in the quality of your films, of the things that you film.
Well, yes, I mean, you need to remember that you can be physically there, but if you're not looking in the right direction, then your filming is not going to be great. So there's definitely aspects of filming that are not just the flying ability, it's also the skills and the techniques and the experience that you have from practice. So that's why filming tandems is a good way to kind of have some of that pressure in a way that's relatively easy to build up the experience, because you still have some responsibility to give a kind of pretty decent product without maybe some of the distractions of other types of filming, which, you know, maybe you'll have if you do some of the stuff that I do, like filming events or something like that.
Yeah, which that's kind of something that I was wanting to, because there's the tandem where you learn and which has responsibility, it has its difficulties, but if you're filming a vertical record, if you're filming big ways, that's a whole other piece of cake, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you really don't want to be thinking too much about your flying techniques or your basic camera skill techniques, because you've got a lot of other stuff on your plate. So you want those things to already be kind of second nature. You know, you don't want to be doing anything that's really challenging you in terms of flying, and if you have the experience already for the camera flying, you don't have to spend too much of your mental capacity thinking about the framing or whatever. It means you can focus on the other aspects that are really important for that type of event.
But does like the framing and the creative aspect get more automatic as you do it? Like, do you instinctively see the shot, or do you actually have to brief yourself and think, I'm going to shoot it in that direction? And
it's a bit of both.
Okay.
I think I always try and think beforehand, okay, I know roughly what to expect. I know where the sun is, for example. I know which direction they're going to fly. So if it's a sunset, I know I want to have at least some of the jump with a shot with the sun in the background. So I've already kind of got that in my head. And usually I'll try and think about what other shots could look nice on a particular jump. But sometimes, yeah, you just see something that looks super nice and you're like, okay, I'm going to film that, you know? But I would say it's maybe like 70% pre-visualization and preparation and 30% inspiration at the time.
Okay, and that, I mean, I believe that some months ago you were filming some very big way event or some record or...
Yep.
What are the things that you need to pay, aside from the creative aspect? Because there you're flying a big way, so with all that flying a big way entails. So what are the things that you pay special attention to when you're in those contexts?
Well, like that's a pretty big one. And the event I think you're referring to was the 200 way attempts we had in Chicago. We ended up getting 174. We had some bad weather and I think we could have gone definitely bigger, but we didn't have the chance. So we set a new record, and people are keen again, people are like happy, and we know we got the skill level to go bigger, so that's good. But yeah, with those jumps, there's a lot of things to consider. Like just even being in the plane on the way up, you have to be very careful how you move, how you breathe, because you have oxygen, and you want to make sure that you're kind of leaving the plane with a full load of oxygen. If you're fidgeting and moving around or not breathing properly, maybe you're already hypoxic before you even get out, and that can really affect things in a record from a safety point of view. And also, if you're not flying at your best ability and you're that one guy who doesn't get there and get the grip because you're hypoxic, then there's no record. So things like that. And then from a filming point of view, I'm usually one of the first to leave because I want to be below the record for a head down. So I want to be leaving early and kind of floating up. But sometimes on the exit, if you leave at the same time as someone, you can get kicked in the head. And with about 8,000 euros worth of camera gear on my head, I don't want to break a camera and potentially, or even just have it turn off by getting knocked and not have the shot. So I want to be careful of that. And then you got to think about, okay, I want to get in a good shot to get the record shot. Obviously that's super important, but not so much a safety thing. And that's something, if you've done everything right up to that point, you're going to be in the right place, you're going to be taking the shot. For the 174 way, we had 4 cameramen underneath, which was complicated for the break-off. And that's one of the things that's like super important for these events is how does everyone get away from each other and open their parachute safely? Because you've got 180 parachutes, basically, you know, trying to open and stay as close together for as long as possible, so they try and get the record, and then separate and try and get as far away from each other. And the cameramen specifically, we had a little bit of an issue because normally it would only be maybe 2 people underneath, but this time they had a new formation and they thought it might be a little bit more difficult to judge, so they wanted all 4 of us underneath. But then for the break off, there's only time for 2 people to go up the middle, and we had to figure out what to do with the other 2. Thankfully that wasn't me, so I didn't have to physically do it, but we all had to try and discuss and find a way to make it safe. And there was some potential issues on the first couple of jumps, but then we figured it out and it was all good. But that's something that's really important for these sort of jumps, is the break off. And then obviously when you open, you got almost 200 canopies in the sky with you, and you need to get down on the ground. So even when you land, you still have to be careful, because if there's other people still landing, you want to make sure you don't get hit. So you got to just do the basic things like face in the direction everyone's landing, try and stand behind your parachute so that you're presenting a minimal target to get hit. And these things are easy to overlook if you're like super hyped. So the more experience you have on these things, the easier you're going to find it to think of all these little aspects. If it's the first time you've ever filmed a 200 way, and everyone has to go through that, I went through that, then you're more likely to be just hyped to be alive and haven't seen the most amazing thing you've ever seen in your life. But you need to try and remember all these basics, all the safety things, So there's a lot that goes into it.
Does it change when you fly bigger cameras on your helmet? I assume that changes how you fly as well, right?
Physically, in terms of the feeling, I don't notice a massive difference. I do notice some difference, but it's not crazy in terms of like I usually film head down. When I'm doing free fly stuff, I usually film head down, so maybe it helps all the weights at the bottom when I'm upside down, I don't know, but I find that's easier. If I'm filming head up with a big camera helmet, then yeah, you notice a bit more of the weight and the shake. But yeah, having the big camera helmet, it does affect some things. And when I jump with a really big camera helmet for like production jobs, then often I'll jump a bigger canopy than my Leia. So
okay, so you adapt. And that we're almost out of time, but I just want to touch on one more thing, which is also a very interesting aspect of you guys that are talented and experienced camera flyers, is the opportunity to work on projects that are not strictly skydive related, so film project, stunt projects, etc. Can you tell me a little bit about how that works and what that gives you, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of different aspect, and it opens a door to another world that maybe a lot of people haven't seen, especially if they're used to maybe just filming tandems or something in skydiving. You get to see a bit more of the whole production camera world for films and stuff, and it's a real eye-opener, because there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of people involved, like catering and things like that. I mean, you don't get catering often as a skydiver, right? But yeah, so usually you'll have a guy whose job it is to set up your camera. You don't even do anything. Sometimes you don't even press the on button. Like I did a job in Saudi Arabia a few weeks ago. I can't discuss it yet because it's not been released, but there was a guy who came in the plane with us to just push the button and turn it on, And then they even said, don't turn it off when you land, just leave it running, and there's another guy on the ground who's going to come up and turn it off for you, just to make sure you don't press the wrong button or whatever. So yeah, that's an interesting aspect, and it really kind of does open the eyes to the bigger world of filming. And I really like it, and we do some production jobs here in Skydive in Puerto Brava. Not that often, but sometimes one comes along, and it's really fun to be involved in that. Yeah.
And we're practically out of time, so I'm going to close, and I'm going to say, do you like filming in the sky? I mean, creativity while you skydive, how good is that?
It's a pretty cool job. I'm pretty lucky, yeah.
Ewan, thank you very, very much for taking the time. I always learn a lot. And also congratulations for all you do and have achieved. Your shots are always amazing. So congratulations, and thank you for being with us today.
Thanks.
And thank you everybody for following, and stay tuned. The next episode out soon.